back, everyone. And thanks for those of you that joined me earlier. And I'm back with another live stream with a really special guest who is running for the U.S. Senate for the Green Party, Matthew Hoh. Thank you so much for joining us and being on Politics of Survival. And yeah, welcome. Yeah. You've got a lot going on. So I wanted to kind of just start in and just kind of tell our listeners, who you are and what you're running for in your district, and then we'll get into what happened.
Sure. Thanks for having me here, Tara. I'm Matthew Hoh, running as a Green Party candidate for the U.S. Senate in North Carolina. I'm a disabled Marine Corps combat veteran. Have done a lot of anti-war and human rights work over the last 12 years. And in the past year, entered into politics as a first-time political candidate with the North Carolina Green Party. This past year, we've had to get onto the ballot, and we just had a very overtly brazen partisan decision handed down by the State Board of Elections that denied us our place on the ballot, even though we fulfilled all the requirements necessary to be on the ballot. And so that's obviously, I think, what we're going to talk about tonight.
Well, take me a step back here. How can they just take you off the ballot with no reasoning? What did they even give, like some sort of reasoning, or is that...
They gave incredibly specious reasoning that just lacks evidence, lacks any sense or rationale. And I'll back it up. So to get on the ballot, to become a recognized political party in North Carolina, we needed 13,865 signatures. We collected 22,500 signatures, and of those, 15,953 were verified by the county boards of elections as valid signatures. So we surpassed the total needed by nearly 2,100, 2,088 to be exact. We turned all our signatures in on time, first by the May 17 deadline in the county, and then by the June 1st deadline to the state. The state has an obligation to immediately and forthwith, according to state statute, certify us as a political party after the counties have verified the signatures and we've attained the threshold needed to be reached. The State Board of Elections received the signatures on June 1st. They held on to them for 30 days. They began an investigation because there were some issues with a very small number of signatures, none of which had ever been validated, so never counted towards the total we needed to reach our goal, attain that threshold, be certified. And on the very last day that it was possible for them to certify us, because there's also a July 1st deadline by state statute that we have to have a nominating convention by and register as Greens and file for candidacy. So on June 30th, the State Board of Elections finally met, the 5 board members, 3 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and along partisan lines. And again, I mean, I keep coming back to saying brazen because it was shocking how overtly partisan this was and how orchestrated it was. The State Board of Elections voted 3-2 along partisan lines to not certify us as a political party and, basically ignore the fact that we had met all the requirements, done everything procedurally correct, met all the deadlines, et cetera. But because they perceived us as a threat, they chose not to certify us.
They being Justice Democrats, who is they?
Just the Democrats, the 3 Democrats on the Board of Elections. The 2 Republicans voted in favor of us. Their argument was that because there were these minor, and again, amounting to, as far as we know, we have been told about 200 signatures that they were concerned about that had issues. And we've worked with them for the last 30 days. We worked very closely with the State Board of Elections investigators trying to help them this because we were defrauded too. We had some people who turned in some signatures looking to kind of scam the system, right, and earn some money that way that were fraudulent. And so we as soon as we were made aware of it, we cooperated fully. And again, you're talking about well less than 1% of the signatures we turned in, and signatures that the counties had identified right away as forgeries or as frauds or as not valid or whatever you want to call it. plus a handful of other odds and ends that accounted, as far as we know, for no more than literally a handful of signatures out of 22,500 signatures. So what the State Board of Elections said, what the Democrats said, was that because there are these issues, there could potentially be more issues. And so we need more time to investigate. But since the deadline is tomorrow, there is no more time to investigate. So we are not going to certify you because we are uncertain as to the integrity of the process. And of course, people, I think, are saying, isn't this kind of like what the Republicans were doing, saying that there was issues of fraud without providing any evidence? You know, and it's exactly what happened. We were denied, among other things, due process at the certification hearing when our attorney asked the chair of the State Board of Elections, Mr. Chair, do these, what you're talking about, your concerns, do they in any way affect the verified signatures? Again, the signatures that count towards our certification. And he refused to answer. He said that this is a criminal investigation, which it's not a criminal investigation, but he said it was a criminal investigation in order to not answer our attorney's question. And then when our attorney tried to follow up, he was shouted down by the chair and his microphone was muted. And then the vote. Yeah, and then this is on video. People can go to the State Board of Elections website and watch this. You can find it on our Twitter page. It's clipped out, but it is. That's why I keep going back to brazen. Look, we knew that we were going to run into things like this. Like when you wade into the alligator pond, you're going to get bit. You know what I mean? Like, but how shocking, how overt it was. Just the smugness, the arrogance, the kind of, we're going to do this and what are you going to do about it attitude that we received. So we're in a position now where, of course, we're going to do something about it. If people think that we're just going to accept this, that we're just going to say, oh, no, they failed to certify us and, oh, I guess we'll try next year. They're completely wrong about that.
Well, what comes to mind is, and I'd mentioned to you before we were on air that I had talked to Angela Walker last year, and I'm hearing some parallels. What are the parallels for you? This is you're earlier on in the process, but theirs happened in Pennsylvania. What are you seeing, and is this coming from the Democratic National Committee? Can you say, is this coming from the top?
Yeah, there's another aspect of this that about 2 weeks ago, we became aware that people who had signed our petition were being contacted by phone and then by text by people who were asking them to confirm whether or not they had signed the petition, but then going into a political pitch about how you should remove your name from the petition because this is going to help Republicans and that abortion is in the balance and the Green Party will cost Democrats the election and that, the best thing for you to do, unless you want to be the one, now I'm paraphrasing, but unless you want to be the one who is the reason why we don't have abortion anymore, you need to remove your name from this petition. Now, people were receiving these phone calls 5-6 times a day. Then the text messages started showing up. We understood, what we came to discover, and what we have audio recordings are that these callers were not identifying themselves as with the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, who were the people behind it. At times they would identify them that way, but other times they would say they were with the Green Party. So they were calling.
That's fraud.
And exactly, calling and clearly and deliberately misrepresenting themselves in a calculated manner in order to get people to pull their names off the petitions. And we have audio of this. What also started happening is that they started showing up at people's homes. So people would come to people's doors, including people who had answered the phone and say, no, I don't want my name off the list, or had responded back on text, no, I don't want my name off of the petition. They would then show up at people's doors and they would say things such as, we're with the Green Party. Sometimes they would identify themselves as being with the Democratic Party. Other times we understand they identified themselves with the State Board of Elections. And they would say things when they would identify themselves as the Green Party, what they would say, or they would say things, as far as we know, as we can understand it, as people have reported to us, they would say things like, it's okay to take your name off the petition because the Green Party is already on the ballot. So this is not going to hurt the Green Party. It was a very convoluted argument that confused people. And that's why people had started calling us saying, what's going on here? Why are you calling us to take our names off of your petition? And we were saying, we're not calling you to do that. And as we
Oh,
learned, and where this
what
really
a
starts
tangled
to be
mess.
well understood for people who follow this is that
Hmm.
you see this is the Elias Law Group. So this is the Mark Elias, who was the general counsel for John Kerry, Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris. People, if you're not familiar with him, please just Google his name, read his Wikipedia profile. He is arguably the most prominent Democratic attorney in the nation. And this type of suppression and attack on the
And
Green Party,
harassment. That's harassment.
what we're
Fraud.
experiencing
Hmm.
here in North Carolina. Mark Elias perfected this when he was John Kerry's general counsel in 2004 against
Hmm.
the Green Party, and particularly against Ralph Nader's campaign in '04.
Right.
So, there's a history to this. They know what they're doing. It's usually quite effective,
Hmm.
and it causes, it doesn't just cause angst now. It
Hmm.
causes angst in the future. It gives people doubt as to whether or not they want to participate something in the future, whether it's signing or actually going out there and working to get people on the ballot, if this is what they're going to have to come up against. So, yeah, I mean, it was, again, very clearly and deliberately calculated in a misleading or fraudulent manner to get people to
Hmm.
pull their names off. And so that's occurring in parallel to what we've
Hmm.
been dealing with here with the State Board of Elections. And we expect at some point, of course, that we will have to deal with the Democratic Party and the Elias Law Firm in court as well, because I'm sure they will come in with their own challenges against our certification as a party and then my candidacy.
Oh, so this battle is going to continue on until, gosh, now I know back east here, there's different times where you vote, like it'll be in the fall, but for the primary, is it August 23rd back east? Is that right? The
No,
right date?
we already in North Carolina, we already had our primary, but
Okay.
because we were seeking to be certified as a new party, we don't
Okay.
participate in the primary this first year. So what
Okay.
we do is after we are certified, we have a nominating convention, and then
Mhm.
in subsequent years. So we are certified. If we're certified this year, then in 2024 we would hold a primary like the other established parties in North Carolina, the Democrats, the Republicans, and the Libertarians.
Okay. As far as like, I had asked you before about the Pennsylvania, do
Yeah.
you see like, okay, so it sounds like some of the same players are involved with
Right.
the DNC. So does this go to the highest point, do you think, of the Democratic National Committee, or is this a regional DCC where it's, and for listeners that may not know that acronym, that's the Democratic Congressional, I forget, Committee, blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah. So,
campaign. Yeah. No,
yeah.
this does go. It goes to the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, the DSCC, which has Mitch McConnell. I'm
Yep.
sorry, Chuck Schumer as its head. I guess they're
Schumer.
at
No, Mitch
times they can be
McConnell's a
interchangeable.
Republican. Yeah, yeah.
No,
Mitch
but
McConnell. I think he'd be okay, but like it's Chuck
well,
Schumer that would not be. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that is troubling about this is how partisan the whole thing has been.
Right.
The number of Republicans who want to come to our aid now, the fact that the certification hearing on Thursday was so openly and clearly partisan in the fact the way the Republicans were making arguments for us, with arguments, of course, that I agreed with. But I know that if we were the Libertarians or the Constitution Party or some independent candidate who viewed himself as conservative, that the roles would have been reversed. And the
Right.
Democrats would have been arguing for us and the Republicans against. I mean, so this is much more about something other than just the Democratic Party. This is about the whole corrupt nature, the whole exclusionary nature, the whole undemocratic nature of the two-party system. And certainly, yes, we can see in Pennsylvania, currently there's a court case in Illinois right now where an independent candidate, they did the same thing to him. He got the signatures necessary to get on the ballot. The Democratic Party came in, did similar tactics, got a couple thousand people to remove their names from the petition, and now he's below the threshold required. In Montana, this occurred in 2020, and certainly go back and you find this over and over again. So this is, again, like I said, this is not surprising. It might be a little startling to see the beast in its how it appears, but
Mhm.
this is the reality of our two-party system, and it will do everything it can to keep anyone out who threatens the donor base of
The
that
Duke's
two-party
lobby.
system.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I mean, like the
Yeah.
this is not about keeping me off the ballot. It's not about keeping the Green Party off the ballot. This is about keeping representation of working families off the ballot. It's about keeping issues off the ballot that threaten, that are a danger
Mhm.
to the big money donors of the Democratic and Republican Party. Right. I mean, this is, if we're not on a ballot, there's no one talking about health care, about affordable housing, about action on the climate, on living wages, on ending the war on drugs, right? All these things that are a real threat to the corporate donors of the Republicans and Democrats. We represent that threat. And so it's not about us, it's about the people we represent whose issues those belong to.
And you know, speaking of which, as far as media coverage, one of the things that, you know, that really surprised me, I guess it shouldn't, but it did, because I continually am shocked by how craven our corporate media is. But I've noticed there's not a lot of coverage about, and it seems like this would be a big issue considering how much airtime, like you mentioned before, they're giving to January 6th and to the Republicans.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah. So has there been any besides local North Carolina coverage, or has there even been that,
We
as
have
far as?
gotten local North Carolina coverage. We've gotten some
Okay,
really
good.
good local North Carolina coverage, and I'm very
Mhm.
appreciative and grateful for that. Um, I think part of that was just as we worked hard to get that relationship with the local media before this happened.
Ah,
So we have
mhm.
a trusted relationship with a lot, but there's also other local media that haven't even looked at us, that have
Right.
taken the State Board of Elections press statement about this and just said, okay, this is the truth, and just been dutiful
Mhm.
stenographers.
Right.
Now, in terms of a national level interest, yes, we've gotten some great coverage by folks like you, and then folks who host podcasts and YouTube platforms, and I
Mhm.
mean, and so we're getting this out to
Twitter.
hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. But if you're talking
Right.
about, has the New York Times called us?
Mhm.
Has CNN expressed any interest?
Mhm.
No, not at all. And we
Yeah.
have contacted various outlets like that, but have heard nothing back.